Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to a new video on the channel. And today guys, we are going to be continuing and doing the finale of our 2023 AFL Fixture Reaction series. In this video we're going to be doing the Western Bulldogs, which as we know in alphabetical order is the last AFL team. So this is going to be the last fixture reaction for 2023. So yeah, let's go ahead, hop right into things. Alright, so as you can see, we've done every single team now except for the Western Bulldogs, which after you watch this video, the fixture reaction series will officially be done. So here we go for the last fixture reaction in 2023, Western Bulldogs, round number 1. They kick it off with a 2021 Grand Final rematch in round 1, which is interesting. Melbourne versus the Western Bulldogs. Now, we do know in 2022, they were the season opener on a Wednesday night, although this time the AFL choosing not to do a Grand Final rematch to start the season. But this has turned into a nice little rivalry now between these two sides. Saturday night MCG primetime lights. I feel like this is probably not a bad way to open up the season for two very big Victorian sides. I feel like a result here is pretty simple. I've tipped the Demons by quite a big margin for this one, at the moment anyway. I feel like the Doggies' defence has a couple of problems at the MCG. Demons will be too strong. But I could see this one being a really cracking contest here. So round 2, it is the first game at Marvel Stadium for the season for the Western Bulldogs. It is Western Bulldogs versus St Kilda at Marvel Stadium. And probably two of the sides that play Marvel Stadium the best. We're talking Marvel Stadium sides. Two of the Marvel Stadium sides that play their home ground the best. I reckon Western Bulldogs and St Kilda are definitely both of them. I think this one could be a really good game. We do know that Zane Cordy will be going up against his former side here in round number 2. And I think this game will probably be a decent one. I reckon, back-to-back Saturday night games as well for Western Bulldogs. Just noticed that. But I reckon this one will probably be a decent game as well. I reckon this one could be a pretty close game. So round 3 is a Thursday night game here between the Doggies and the Lions at Marvel. And Brisbane are not the best side at Marvel. So there is a really good chance here that the Doggies do the surprise upset and do go ahead and win. They are a great side at Marvel, probably one of the best sides in the competition at Marvel. And I think they are a real good shot here versus Brisbane, who are quite poor at Marvel. So I reckon this one is going to be a cracker of a contest at Marvel. This one should be a brilliant game. So round 4, they go to the MCG to play another big Victorian club in Richmond. Very tough start to their year here for the Western Bulldogs. Quite a tough start. But yeah, this is going to be a tough game. Richmond versus Western Bulldogs, Saturday twilight at the MCG. It's going to be a really tough game for them. But I reckon this one could be decent. I reckon Richmond will win, but could be a good game. So round 5, of course, we know it is Magic Round, official name Gather Rounds. Port Adelaide versus Western Bulldogs is going to be that game. I'd be expecting the Power to win. But the Doggies aren't too bad at the Adelaide Oval, but I do obviously think being home game for the Power, they should be able to win. Round 6, they travel to Perth to play the elimination final rematch from last year, and it's going to be Fremantle versus the Western Bulldogs. Friday night prime time here at Optus. I think, look, the Dockers aren't too bad at Optus Stadium, but on a Friday night, or really in prime time games at Optus, they do seem to really fall to the occasion, and a big name Friday night prime time game goes from being an absolute 100 to down to 0, and it's a bit disappointing how they, in 2022, could not stand up in these prime time games. Now, again, if it's raining, well, that's conditions-wise. Dockers aren't great in the rain. But talking no rain here, I reckon this one will be probably a good game in Perth, I reckon. I reckon both these sides will bring a really good contest, and I reckon this one will be a really close game. So round 7, the Doggies go back to Marvel to play the Hawks. And I wouldn't be seeing this one being a epic contest or anything like that. I think the Doggies should be able to comfortably beat the Hawks, considering the Hawks are a side with little to none experience and a lot more younger players, which is going to be great in a couple of years' time when they all get off and rolling for the Hawks. But in the meantime, it's going to be a bit of patience and a bit of waiting. I think they're going to get smashed on multiple occasions this year, and I reckon this one could be one of those games where they do get smashed. So round 8 is going to be the Giants and the Western Bulldogs in another Saturday night contest at Manuka Oval, interestingly enough. Smaller ground, so should produce a pretty interesting contest down at Manuka. There's been some interesting conditions, most notably round 23 versus the Dockers when the Giants played there. It was windy, really windy. So I reckon this one could be an interesting game. Smaller ground, probably high scoring, or either really high scoring or really low scoring, I'd be saying. I reckon this one, just because I feel like at Marnie Crover the scores are low, I think the Giants will be in this game for most of it. I think the Doggies will just be too strong in the end. But I think this game, for most of it, will probably actually be a surprisingly decent one. So round 9, it's another Saturday night game for the Western Bulldogs. It is a game at Marvel versus Carlton, and I think it's going to be a really good contest between these two sides. Two sides that are going to be hungry for the top 8 in 2023. Carlton, they really do need to make it in 2023. The last couple of years, they really have been around that mark, ready to surge, haven't done it on multiple occasions. This year's got to be the surge year where they just surge, they surprise everybody, and probably end up making it into the top 4 in my opinion. Western Bulldogs this year, again, they're going to be hungry for the top 8, and they're going to need to do plenty of work to get there, and this is going to be a really good game, I reckon, on a Saturday night. I reckon this is going to be a cracking contest. I'd say the Blues would win, but I reckon this one could be a really good game considering how strong the Doggies are at Marvel Stadium. So round 10 is their first trip to Mars Stadium in 2023. This year only playing a couple of games at Mars Stadium as well, the Western Bulldogs. First one coming against the Crows, always seem to play the Crows down there. Do the Western Bulldogs at Marvel, they always seem to play the Crows down there. And they've had the better of them in the past couple of years. In 2022, the tables turned. The Crows pulled off a amazing win down there. I think this one should be a Dogs win, but who knows what those young Crows can bring. They're a team full of effort and a team full of absolute hope, and I reckon they're going to be climbing up that ladder again this year and could surprise upset in a lot of games, and this one could be one of those. So round 11 is, of course, Gold Coast 2-week stint in Northern Territory. They play round 11 and round 12 up there versus Doggies and the Adelaide Crows at TIO Stadium, and this is their first of the 2 games up there. Prime time Saturday night at Gold Coast versus Dogs at TIO Stadium. And I'm not quite sure what to think of the Dogs' history at TIO. They don't really play there too much, so you can't really judge anything off that. The Suns play there a lot, and I'd be expecting them to win just because they know that ground reasonably well. So round 12 is back to more Saturday nights here for the Western Bulldogs, getting plenty of Saturday nights that I've noticed in these first 15 rounds with dates and times to be confirmed, which are confirmed. The Doggies play the Cats at Marvel Stadium here in round 12. As I've said, I feel like the Doggies are one of the teams that play Marvel Stadium perhaps the best. And the Cats, well, they're not great at Marvel. They play okay there, but they're not, like, amazingly good as the Western Bulldogs there. I still feel like the Cats will win, but I reckon the Doggies will be able to hang around in this one. So round 13 at Marvel again here for the Doggies and the Power. I feel like this one could probably be a close game. Port Adelaide aren't too bad at Marvel. Western Bulldogs great at Marvel. I think this one will produce a pretty decent contest. So round 14 Marvel again. North Melbourne versus Western Bulldogs. North Melbourne is seeming to own this 4:40 time slot Sunday afternoon in 2023. I feel like the Dogs should be able to comfortably win. Round 15 is their bye. Round 16, this is going to be a good game. Western Bulldogs versus Freo at Marvel. Now, look, we know these two sides both play Marvel incredibly well. We are talking incredibly well. The Dogs, as I've said, the best, I reckon, in my opinion, the Victorian side that plays Marvel the best out of all of them. Fremantle, definitely probably the best interstate side that plays Marvel the best would be Fremantle. So this is probably 2 of the best teams at Marvel Stadium going head-to-head at Marvel Stadium. This has surely got to be Friday, Saturday night, or even Thursday night, in my opinion. This should be a really, really, really good game. So then it is another Marvel Stadium game, round 17. It is the Dogs and the Pies at Marvel. And there's probably a few of you guys thinking, oh, Collingwood will be able to win easily. Collingwood are much better than the Western Bulldogs. Now, I'm going to oppose to that fact. Collingwood are pretty poor at Marvel, and we are talking pretty poor at Marvel. They play North Melbourne at Marvel this year, and I actually do believe they could honestly lose that game. I believe Collingwood will win against North Melbourne at Marvel, but just putting that into comparisons, this one, if I'm only seeing Collingwood beating North by a small margin at Marvel, and they've lost to West Coast at Marvel, I cannot see them beating the Western Bulldogs at Marvel. A team that plays Marvel the best in the competition, they're not going to lose to Collingwood at Marvel. I see the Dogs winning this one. Sydney versus Western Bulldogs is the next game at the SCG. And when these two sides were really back in their prime, this was an exciting matchup, even if it was at the SCG. now that Western Bulldogs have kind of had a little bit of a drop off over the past couple of years, this rivalry has sort of lost a little bit, especially considering when it's at the SCG. Swans play that ground so well, and yeah, I'd be expecting a smashing here. The Swans should be able to deliver a pretty comfortable win there. So back to Marvel Stadium, go the Western Bulldogs to play Essendon, and again, couldn't see them losing to Essendon at Marvel, and couldn't see them losing to the Giants at Marvel either. Could not see the Bulldogs losing to either of these sides at Marvel. Alright, so yeah, couldn't see the Dogs losing to either the Dons or the Giants at Marvel. Those should be comfortable wins. And then now, having a look at the end of the year, it's a bit of mixed news for the Doggies. Bit of good, bit of bad. Pretty much mostly good though. Western Bulldogs versus Richmond at Marvel. And again, I oppose to the fact that Richmond win this one. Again, you'll probably be thinking Richmond will win. I oppose to that fact. Richmond, again, just like Collingwood, really poor at Marvel. They lost to North Melbourne at Marvel. They had a disappointing draw with the Dockers at Marvel. I really couldn't see them beating the Doggies at Marvel, a team that plays Marvel the best. I think Richmond will probably compete a little bit more than Collingwood will, but I still see the Dogs winning this game, which is quite an important one. I reckon at this time of year, gives the Dogs a very good running for the finals as well. I feel like the amount of games that I see them winning could definitely give them a chance for the finals. So then they play the Hawks at Utah Stadium, and they always seem to play the Hawks at Utah Stadium around this round 20. It's round 22 when they're playing them this year. They always seem to play the Hawks 21, 22, 23, either of those couple of rounds. They always seem to play the Hawks at Utah Stadium most notably, and they are again this year. Again, would be expecting the Doggies to win that one by, I don't know, kind of thinking 15, 20 points. I think that's probably about what they'd win by. Then they've got the Eagles at Marvel Stadium, which would be a pretty comfortable win as well. The Eagles aren't great there. The Doggies are. And then a bit of the bad news there for the Western Bulldogs, round 24 will probably be one of their hardest games of the year. Geelong versus the Western Bulldogs at GMHBA Stadium. And I would not be surprised to see this game given prime time. But yeah, I feel like the Dogs will probably end up losing that one. So now, going back on their fixture, let's go ahead and see the sides that they will be playing twice in 2023. Alright, so the sides they're playing twice in 2023 are Fremantle, Geelong, GWS, Hawthorn, Port Adelaide and Richmond. So Port Adelaide, Richmond, again, the games they play them two at Marvel, I feel like they'll probably be able to get the better of them. Maybe not Port Adelaide, but I do see them getting the better of Richmond at Marvel Stadium. I feel like that one should be a win. Port Adelaide at Marvel should be a close game as well, so that'll be an interesting one. Fremantle and Geelong is going to be very tough, both the times they play them. I think it'll be incredibly tough to pick up wins. And then GWS and Hawthorn should be able to get wins both the times. I feel like this is a very tough fixture here for the Western Bulldogs, but also a little bit of easiness considering they're playing some sides at Marvel, which may not be typically suited or might not like Marvel. So I think this really does just come down to, I reckon the Doggies are going to be involved in quite a few thrillers this year. I think it just comes down to how they play well at the death and whether they can go ahead and win some of these thrillers. I feel like that's what it's going to come down to. I feel like they could really have a really good year and be right up in that top 8 conversation, or have a really poor year and be slumping towards that 13th, 14th, 12th position kind of area on the ladder, or they might just sit in the middle and have an average season where they might just finish 10th or something like that. So I really think anywhere on the spectrum for the Western Bulldogs is capable. I think it's really just going to be down to injuries, how they play, and yeah, whether they can pick up some really important wins. So for the Western Bulldogs, I see them being a really interesting team heading into 2023. I don't know where they could potentially finish. Thank you guys. It was so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Sending guys and another video on the channel. Then guys, it was Smart from Bye everyone. Flaming Footy out.